What's your final, I guess, you seem at times more unhappy than happy this season with the team. What's your final assessment of how it went, and how much of it does it matter if you want to kind of clean house going into next year?
I thought we had some really good progress with our kids. A lot of them were put into some heavy minutes, some key situations. Saw a couple come up at the end of the year, Forster, or a couple of defensemen. So in a year where everybody, I'm sure everybody around us, an atrocious year as far as this, that, the record, not making the playoffs, I don't look at it that way. The way I have to, or the way we have to, Danny and I, and the organization, is the step that we were in of the process, and that was going to be losing some games. No one likes doing it, but that's part of it. That's the part we're in right now. But there are some really good things in my mind with how some of our kids progressed.
Is that basically how you had envisioned it last summer?
I don't envision anything. I go about. I don't predict, or I just go about the everyday business, and let it fall where it falls. If we're not happy with some of the struggles or where we're at that particular day, we make corrections. We coach. For coming into the organization for my first year and hearing about the players and then experiencing them, that was really important for me to figure out who they are. I think I've got a pretty good handle as far as some of the personalities of the players, how we go about coaching them in the future. Some players that we just don't think can be part of it. Those are all things we went through this year. So I had no thoughts about where it would be because I just didn't know the players. I just heard about where the organization was and knew that we were going to have to make some evaluations and, quite honestly, do the process the proper way. And that's dealing with your kids and figuring out which kids are going to be part of it, which kids are trying to find their way to be part of it, and go about it that way.
John, dating back to training camp when we first talked, really dating back to the first time we talked to you, you talked a lot about the idea of setting a new standard, of improving the culture, of building a culture that can win. I know from a roster standpoint, you guys may not be where you need to be to get to that point, but in terms of that standard, that culture, if you had to put a number on it, say like between 1 to 10, where do you think you guys are at after this season? Yeah, and I don't like using the word culture. I think it's overused. I do think the understanding what it is to be a pro, standard of practice, standard of quite honestly, what accountability means. As I said to you guys earlier when I first came here, it's a great word, but holding people accountable, you find out about people. And I have found out about people as far as people that simply don't know what the word means. And I'm talking about players. Some players just don't want to be held accountable or just can't handle it. That's building a standard. And I guess the way I'll put it is there. And I've said it to you throughout the year, I don't think there are many nights this season, and I don't care what you call us, what you say what our year was, one of the biggest points was how hard we play. I think that's the starting ground of building a standard. There weren't many nights we didn't play hard. So I'm really encouraged with that. The accountability factor, as far as what's expected, as far as play, as far as being a pro, conduct, practice habits, teammate, being a teammate, playing under a team concept. We've got some work to do. and not with all of them, but with a number of our players. And I expected that, and we're going to keep banging away at it. I do. I just, I'm not sure what it, even with you guys, I think when there's accountability with a player, or something doesn't go right and a player is benched or isn't happy, you guys think it's the end of the world. It's part of the process of building accountability. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not trying to be vague, but we have work to do. And I think we have work to define that and understand what the definition of accountability is. I think to everybody with the team, in the organization, players, you guys, we're going to continue to try to teach the definition of accountability through actions. And yeah, so played hard, but we have some work to do as far as the mental state of what it is to be a National Hockey League player and what's expected each and every day.
John, before the trade deadline, Chuck Fletcher said that ideally next year you guys would have 2 kids pushing onto the roster. Do you see that as a possibility, or do you think maybe even more kids can try to grab spots? From
the kids that played on this roster, or new kids coming in?
New kids coming in.
Oh, I can see there's going to be competition. There are some veteran guys that I'm hoping kids take their spot. The way it's as I just got through with Danny, as we looked at some of the guys, I think we're going to have healthy competition in all spots. And I think you look at our forward position. I think some kids have progressed nicely there as far as our youth. I think the next spot is defense. I'd like to see some youth come into there and push some people, because there's no locks. Not judged on the overall play of all those players on our back end. There's no locks there, and so I'm hoping some kids come in here. Certainly not going to be given. I'm certainly not going to disrespect the veteran guys and want to get them out of there. But everybody's going to have to earn their spot, and I think as it's another year and you're still trying to go through the process. I'm anxious to see what camp looks like next year with some of the guys that's played down in Lehigh that we're interested in.
A few weeks ago, we chatted about things that surprised you from when you took the job. We talked a lot about gray areas. Now that the season's over, just reflecting on what are the things that surprised you most, and how did that affect what you see as the future for this program, what needs to be done?
Well, I think not a surprise. I think I just touched upon it with Charlie. I still don't think we understand accountability. And what it takes to be accountable. I'll put it to you this way. A coach's job is to hold the player accountable when he doesn't think the player is holding himself accountable. A coach's job is to hold a team accountable when he doesn't think the team is holding themselves accountable. That's a huge part of our job. Bench coaching is very important, putting men on the right spot and all that. But in this situation here, in the process we're in right now, that's one that we're going to have to get better. You can play hard, and we did. But to play under a team concept and to play and be a good pro, understand at least here, you're going to have to accept the honesty and understand that that's all it is honesty. It's not a personal thing. We have a ways to go there. I think we're way too goddamn sensitive out here. And about simply coaching. That surprises me. Not surprised, but that's something that that's something that we're going to have to really grow at.
John, going back to what you said this a lot this year, but you said a few minutes ago about the idea of subtractions.
Mhm.
Obviously, you're not the GM, you're not making all the trades, and all the trades that you guys want to make, you might not be able to make.
Mhm.
But ideally, are you in your head thinking that you would like to subtract a lot of pieces from this roster? Like, well, I'm not asking you for a number, but
Yeah.
do you envision a lot of players currently on this roster, in terms of where they stand with you right now, need to be subtracted?
Oh, I think there is. What's the word? I'm not going to give you the number, but I think there are people for the organization to move forward. Yeah, and this isn't. Yes, I'll answer that. Yes, I wouldn't say a lot. I said I'm going to say there are people. I don't. Danny and I he finished with his exit interviews. We just had a short meeting here before meeting you guys. That's in concert with Danny. The one thing that, as I said, I didn't plan on it because I just wanted to give my coaches a chance at it. Danny and I had some really good time when I was upstairs. So it kind of moved that process forward. I don't think there's many disagreements between Danny and I as far as the people. But I want to make sure, I don't want you to think it's something, this is, holy crap. This happens to all teams that are trying to get better. And I think sometimes teams get the order backwards and they try to add people before there's subtraction. And that's when you spin in the wheels. That's when you spin in the mud. So yes, there are people that I think need to move on because of the where we're at in our process. If we're in a different situation with this team, maybe some of those guys know, but we're not. And that's going to be in discussions with both Dans. And I met with both Dans today, and these are discussions that we're beginning to have. So, but to answer your question, yes.
How much of accountability is a learning thing,
Yes.
and how much could be just a clash of personalities?
I think it's both. I'm not saying it's both here, but I think it could happen both ways. And I do think when a new coaching staff comes in, I do think there is some time to learn, because everybody has a different. I think every coach, I think every organization, I think every player has a different definition for accountability, and I just think it's human nature. So I'm not. That isn't a bad thing, but when you're in pro sport and the coaching staff is here, we got our group of people. I guess that's the process you're going through and making sure you get that right definition. I think at least the definition how I feel about it. Clash of personalities happens all the time. How do you? The way I feel about it and how I go about it, it's never a personal thing with me when I coach players. Never a personal thing. It is me trying to get the best out of the player I possibly can that plays under a team concept in a team sport. You can try to get the best out of people, but you got to remember we're in a team sport, and a lot of things come into play because of that. So, does that answer your question? Yeah, it comes into play all the time. Clash of personality and the definition, because I think it's different all through the league.
Well, the way you coach, does it come into play with you more so than other head coaches, do you think?
Clash of personality. This is the way I coach. Okay, and I want to kind of define it for you. I coach when I teach, or when we teach as a coaching staff. I keep on saying it's we. We teach in a group setting. If I am coaching a player and we're doing our tape, and it's not always bad. Sometimes we're always thinking about the bad stuff when we're coaching, but there's always good stuff too. It's always in a classroom setting. It's in our theater. And if I have a problem with Charlie about his back check, everybody's going to hear about it, okay? You all hear about it because I think it's that important. I used to do the one-on-ones
with players. And I think it goes in one ear and out the other. I think when it's in a classroom setting, you've got the inner pressure. I'm giving Charlie crap, and you guys are hearing it. It becomes an inner pressure in the locker room, and where eventually you want the locker room to take over itself, so we don't have to be in there. So to get back to that, it is a group setting, and it's total honesty. Does that cause a clash? Sure, it does. I don't think people. I'm not going to. It's so unfair to the player if I'm not totally honest, and because I don't think I'm doing my job. I think I'm doing the player a disservice if I'm not totally honest. Now, with today's athletes, especially today, I'm not so sure sometimes they want the honesty, because sometimes it's hard to hear, and I get that. But I need to do it because I'm not only coaching Charlie, I'm coaching everybody else, I think, in that setting. Having said that, when a player doesn't like that or needs more information and doesn't feel comfortable coming back to me, and listen, I had some situations this year which were so encouraging and so, I thought it was so good that players, a couple of them came right at me in front of the group, right back at me. And I've got to be ready for that. And because I think a coach needs to be vulnerable if he's going to coach the player the proper way. If you're going to be honest with a player, you put yourself in a vulnerable position. I do it all the time. And I've got to be ready. And I had some players come right back at me. But at least he had the gumption to come at me. And then you solve the problem quicker that way because you're solving it as men, and you get to the other side. As long as they know it's not a personal attack, as long as they know that, you find your way through it. And I think that's the best way to get to a player. Players don't feel comfortable in that situation. So I am always available for them to come in one-on-one. TK came in when he was benched. Frosty came in. Tony came in, a number of players came in, and so you go to the next step. I am not going to run around the locker room and look to hug players and have one-on-one meetings. I'm not. I think they understand where they sit when I'm in the group setting. If they don't like it or they need more, door is always open for them to come in. But I'm not going to chase them around the building for them. I think the onus is on them. If they're mad, come to me. If they need some more information, come to me. I got Rocky ready with tape. I've got Chauzy. We're all set to go. But it always will start in a group setting. And I think it is one of the most dynamic and I think one of the most rewarding situations because I think you become closer. And does it cause conflict, as you're asking, with my person? Sure it does. Conflict is not a bad thing. Everybody, it's like taboo. Don't get them pissed off. Oh, Christ, they're mad at you because you sat them. Oh, my gosh, really? If they're not mad at me, I'd be more upset. But that's how you develop relationships. And that's how we're going to go about it. And I did it the other way. It doesn't work as far as at least for me and my coaching staff. And it got me to a better understanding of players. Some in a really good vein for me in my head. Others, I just can see it that it's not going to work.
John, a guy that you...
Sorry about the long-winded answer, but I want to make sure you understand that.
A guy that you felt like you were probably going to maybe clash with at times was Tony D'Angelo.
Mm-hmm. Did.
How is your relationship with him, and do you feel like you guys can make it work next year if he's here?
And I know that's probably a big topic for you guys. Tony didn't play the last 5 games, so something happened, right? That's going to stay between Tony and I and the team. Yeah. But my job is to make decisions what is best for the hockey team in my job as the coach. And sometimes it causes situations, but that's all part of it. It's the most interesting part to me in coaching is to see how people handle. It goes back to, I'm not sure, it was early accountability. People say, yeah, I want to be held accountable. But when it really comes down to it, some guys don't want to be. And they want a free pass in certain situations. There's no free passes. So, yeah, with Tony and I, that's a situation I think that Tony and I need to work through along with the team,
John, going back to
not publicly.
going back to accountability, you mentioned that even though some guys may not want to be held accountable, that it can be a learning process for them to learn how to
Absolutely.
be held accountable. How do you navigate a guy just never wanting to be held accountable versus like giving him the time and space to learn how to do it before making a call and saying, hey, he should be a part of our future.
It's a great question, and because it happens all the time. This isn't craziness. This isn't trying to pick a fight with a player. This is just simply how you have to coach, and especially when you're trying to build a standard. So I have to use my gut. And is he listening? I like it when players come back at me, because at least I know I got their attention and they want to get involved in the conversation. When I get yad and yad again and but, you got to start thinking, well, this guy, you know what? Maybe he's not going to be on the bus with us here because he won't accept. It won't accept it. There isn't a clause in my contract that says I can't coach a damn player, and I can't hold him accountable, whether it be with his play, his attitude, being a good teammate, all the things that come into play in building a standard. There's no clause in there that says I can't do that. I am going to do that, and if players don't like it, they should tell me. And we have an exchange and hopefully build on it. And if they just simply won't accept it, then those are the decisions that we have to make with the management team.
In Chicago,
One
you
of the,
mentioned that this last stretch gave you some more questions than you thought you would have. One, were those things about just play or also about character? And two, how does that affect you going to the off season? Because I know you said you might feel differently about the training camp.
About the players?
Yeah, the ones that you now have more questions about than you thought.
Yeah, and I'm not going to run through the players with you. I'm not. But I think we've to the end of this year we evaluated, and I found out some really good things about players, some real promising things about players that I wasn't sure where they were a few months ago, and found out some things that, you know, it's just I'm not sure if it can be consistent enough in what we want. So that's the again in where we're at, and we did it right to the bitter end, right to the last game, and sometimes, Gianna, it's just not on the ice. It's all the things that go with it. And do you feel they want to be part of this process? Because we're in a different process than Colorado and other teams, you know. So those are the things you have to feed through too. So in the short time I just spent with Danny, and then in the 2 or 3 games I spent talking with him, we talked a lot about this as far as where guys have gone. And then we'll have more discussions as we get through with the exits and through with you guys, and see where we're at as what we think kind of a ghost lineup as projections as far as next year.
Time for a few more.
That kind of leads into a question that I wanted to ask. Basically, you just said that you guys are trying to figure out, maybe who doesn't really want to be here either. You got, there are guys that maybe want to be here, but you might not want them to be here, and
Yeah.
there are guys that you might want to be here, but they might not.
Yes.
If that happens, are you apt to say, well, if you don't want to be a part of this, we'll find a way to get you out, or
Yep.
is it less? Are you less motivated to do it if you feel like they still have something to provide?
No. I think when a player, and it probably won't come to me, it'll probably go to Danny. Listen, I want believers. I do. I don't think you find your way unless you have believers, and I think you go through a process. Especially this is our first year as a coaching staff. I'm sure it's different for a lot of them. Do they believe? I think we can tell with their actions as we've gone through a long year. That's why I don't have exit meetings with the players. I've been with them through it all, and we've had these conversations. I don't need to hear any more at the end of a year. But the non-believers that don't want to be here, I'm sure that goes to Danny, and I don't want non-believers. I just think it's a really tough piece of ground to start on, in trying to stabilize this organization. There are a lot of players out there. And if one guy doesn't want to be here, again, it's like I've always said, it's not like football. You just move them out of here. It may take time, but I think those are conversations that they're going to probably have with Danny. And I get it. I'm not saying to you guys that I have all the answers, but I'm going to coach this team the way I think is fit. I'm going to coach this team in the way I think this team needs to be coached. And I'm not going to shy away from it, that maybe because some feelings are hurt or you think there's mayhem in the room, which there really wasn't. You guys think there may be. I owe it to this organization, and Chuck Fletcher gave me a fantastic opportunity, and I love being here. But I feel I know how to coach this hockey club, and when the people above me feel that I've missed a mark, they'll let me know, right? You know, they let you know. That's a coach's job. But I'm not losing sight of because I think of I still think we need hardness in our minds. Not hard player. I just think we need to accept, to be the best you can be, you need to be held accountable. And if you're tired of a coach holding you accountable, I need to hold myself accountable. That's how you build this. And we're at the first stage of that.
Do you feel like you have?
He's been please.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
One of the first areas you started emphasizing in camp was teaching the team how to defend better.
Mm-hmm.
Killing plays, preventing plays out of the corners, not losing body or stick position. That was, you and the staff would over that again and again and again. It seemed like sporadically during the year that was clicking. Other times it didn't.
Yeah.
How far do you think you got by the end of the year, and how much more?
We need a ways to go. Yeah, we need, and quite honestly, that's why you need to look at our back end. I think we've made some really good progress with our forwards, even away from the puck in that part of it. But I think in our back end, that's kind of the next focus that I'm looking to see kids. And because if we're not, we go back to that word accountability. If we're not going to be accountable, and we don't agree that if you think you're doing a good enough job and you're not going to listen that you're not, then other people get an opportunity. So certainly, I think we've made really good inroads in understanding what is wanted. Is it the right people that are able to do that? That's an organizational point of view we have to talk about. And are the players willing to be accountable to it?
One more? Oh, just how do you feel? I mean, you sound positive about the overall state of the organization. You feel like the infrastructure is there with Danny, with Dan, with the assistant coaches, that everyone's on the same page, the same path as to how you...
Yeah, I do. I'm looking forward to it because I do think I think that the biggest thing in the philosophy of what we're doing is we're going to stay with it. And I'm not criticizing Chuck because I'm talking about two Dans and my coaches and all that. It's kind of a new group when we lose a really good man and I think a really good general manager in Chuck. But the biggest thing, I think the biggest point, guys, out of this is when you commit to a process of what we have to do to try to get this right, you can't go looking when there's that guy out there that is a fairly big name and you change course, let's go get him. We can't change course. We've got to stay the course and let our kids develop. I hope we're younger next year and keep developing our kids. And there's going to be a time when the bigger name is out there. I think we're all in agreement with that. I think that's the most important point here, is that everybody believes in how we have to do this. And that's not saying you don't go out and get some players, some free agents, because there are some out there that can fill some spots for us in backfilling, as I've said, not looking for the top ones. I think backfilling is the most important part of it, and I know that we're all on board with that. And I want to say one other thing as we're talking about an organizational view. The medical situation here, I was alerted to, I'm not sure who wrote it, someone questioned the medical thing. This medical
the medical part of our organization has transformed. I know Cam said some things, and I read Cam's. I read through. I had to read it to read through it. I wish he didn't go down that road, but as I read further, he did come back around and talk about the medical staff in the proper way, because they have worked their ass off to get this scab, and not even a major cut that is hung around this organization, to get it right. We're on the right road there. I want you guys to understand that. We are on the right road with some good people. Is it still progressing? Yes. It still needs to be filled in with other people. But our players were looked after. Cam was looked after. There was a misdiagnosis out there in Columbus too. And it happens. People are trying to do the best they can for the athletes. And I know it's been a sore spot here, but is it fixed? It's not fixed yet, but we're on the right road here. So I want to make sure I bring that up. You guys didn't ask that. That's something that has grown tremendously as we've gone through our first year and trying to transform that.
Dan, John just talked about accountability of players and how that's going to be a major factor here moving forward. How much are you going to be involved in that process in terms of trying to figure out which ones do a good job of holding themselves accountable and which ones don't?
Well, we'll communicate with Torts and his coaching staff. It's not something that's going to be done just upstairs or downstairs. We're all going to collaborate, work together on that. Torts is really clear. There's things that are important to him. How players carry themselves and how they play, how they act. And that's going to be a big part of it. It was a big part of it this year. If you look at how things were done and were ran, accountability was a big thing throughout the organization, and I think that's part of the progress that you saw this year. There's definitely a big change when it comes to a certain standard, and you can use the word accountability for it.
I guess with where you guys are at right now, obviously if you bring in a coach like John Tortorella, he's going to have influence. That's just part of how it goes. But how much influence is he going to have in terms of picking who stays and who goes? Obviously you're the GM, the interim GM right now, so in the end it's your decision, but are you going to pretty much just take him at his word if he thinks a guy needs to stay or go?
There's going to be a lot of discussions. There's a lot of good people upstairs also evaluating players, but they have the coaches. They see something different. They deal with the players, a few feet away when the games are happening. Some of the stuff that we don't see up sometimes in the press box. So the information that we get from the coaching staff is extremely important as well.
How,
And
I know.
the coach is always worried about winning, number one, but winning to keep his job. So, ostensibly, you being the GM and whoever being the president, you have the capacity to make him employed or unemployed. How much input can a coach have objectively in your
Well, if you look at this year alone, Torts bought into what we're trying to do and given the chance to the young guys to play, to have more opportunities, more of a chance. And the message was really clear, and he bought in, and he knows it's going to be part of it next year as well. Like I said, it's I'm not the only one making decisions. He's not the only one making decisions. We have a group of people all together, looking at what is the best for the organization, not just in the moment, but moving forward and into the future. So, we're all going to be involved. It's not going to be just a one-man show making all the decisions, or two people making all the decisions. It's going to be a group of people, and we're going to look. There's some really good information that we can get from the coaching staff.
When you say he bought in to the message, to the philosophy, whose message and philosophy was it? Who was generating the message?
Well, it started with me, with the rebuild. I didn't hide behind it. I came in and I said it. Now how fast or how long it's going to take, the players will dictate that. But everybody's on board. Everybody agrees that we need to do this the right way. We've said it. Torts have said it many times. We all agree that it needs to be done the right way, and we might need a little bit of patience from the fans in that regard. It might be some growing pains to go through, but when you look at how some of our young players got better this year, I think that was really impressive and exciting for the future.
The players all say that you spend a lot of time with them and have gotten to know them. How important is that for you to make your own opinions outside of what just Tortorella is telling you?
I don't know if it's if it's important, but I mean, obviously, if I make some decisions, I need to have an opinion. My opinion comes from years of playing and looking at how organizations are being built. Having a chance to have been out there, having played the game, understanding how a locker room works, the ins and outs of a locker room are things that I'm going to try to use. But there's other areas that I'm going to need help with when it comes to scouting and analytics and stuff like that. So, and that's where we have I feel a lot of good people around to help us. Everybody has strengths, and trying to use everybody's strengths to the best and the benefits of the organization.
Danny, I'm not asking you to name names, but I'm sure you have a wish list on what positions you want. What would be number one on that wish list? Like, would it be a number one left winger or a second line center? Or what position do you think this team really needs in the offseason?
It's a little early to dive into that. I haven't looked at exactly what positions. There's so many things that might happen. At this point, we're far from free agency. We're trying to get, kind of gather information. There's going to be some changes. We're really strong on the right side. Obviously, everybody knows that. With Cam Atkinson coming back and the emergence of many of our right winger, the right side, that's a really strong side. Coots coming back in the middle, how Cates has played, obviously helps us down the middle. Looking quickly at it, on the left side, we might need some help there. But again, we're not looking out to go sign a big-time free agent, with lots of term on a contract at the moment. We want to give our young players the opportunity to develop, and we want to see what we have before, kind of blocking some of the young guys.
Danny, what's the status of the team president, and does it matter if you go forward with this offseason until you have? That's not up to me. I don't know what's going on. I read the rumors just like you guys, and what you guys are writing. That's kind of what I have on it. So I absolutely have no idea what's going on there. And have they given you any indication when they're going to take the interim title away?
No.
Yeah,
Sorry.
as far as the draft, you touched on scouting. Do you anticipate any new people being brought in before the draft? And as far as picks go, are you trying to acquire more picks for this draft?
No, we have a really good scouting team. You look at what we've done in the last 2-3 years. I really believe in our amateur scouting team. And as far as the picks that we have, we're fortunate. It's a good year. We have quite a few picks, and we have a high one. No later than 9. You have to go through a lot of bad times to get there, unfortunately. But it's exciting when you're at the draft table and you get to pick such a high pick. So it's going to be a critical pick for the organization moving forward. There's no doubt about it. As far as what we're going to do there, it's way too early. We're going to look. We're going to inquire to see, what we can do. But the most likely is we're going to keep our pick and pick in the slot that we're going to end up with.
Danny, going back to something that Tort said, he basically said that you guys have talked about changes that need to be made. You guys are basically on the same page. But I'm curious, what happens if, in the course of this process this summer, if you guys ultimately strongly disagree about whether he thinks a guy maybe shouldn't be part of this and you do? What happens in that situation?
we're going to communicate. It's like having a fight with your brother or sister. I mean, you find a way to fix it, and that's what we're going to do. I'm not worried about that.
You spoke about the depth that this team has right now on the right side, and you've also talked about the word rebuild. Before Chuck left, he talked a lot about the importance of the 25 and under core. Travis Konechny is no longer a part of that core. However, he had a very strong season. How do you view his future right now with the organization, with the knowledge that you are going to undergo a rebuild?
Travis?
Yeah.
I mean, with the season he's had, he's it's been really impressive. Over half a goal a game, over a point a game. He's been our leader offensively. He's getting more and more mature. He's taking on more responsibilities. He's more and more of a leader. And we use the under 25. It's a little bit of a loose term. I mean, he's right there on the cusp. I think he's an important member moving forward. I've been really, really impressed with him. How this year kind of took over, and with the last couple of years, losing Jake Voracek, losing Claude Giroux, you're always looking to see who's going to take the next step, who's going to take on a bigger bite, right? And I think Travis is probably the one that jumped at the top of it this year. It was a great year. I'm really impressed with him. He's, to me, definitely a top-line player.
Going back to Charlie's question, Torts was just talking about how he's trying to build a standard, and if he doesn't want guys who aren't going to fit that standard. So if you do disagree on a guy, knowing just like the type of coach that Tortorella is, that his style might not mesh with everyone, do you worry that if it's like someone you like that he doesn't like, that might cause conflict through the season?
Well, we're going to fix that before the season starts. I can promise you that. We'll come to an agreement. I'm really not worried about that. We'll do what's best for the team. It doesn't matter. It's not about Danny Briere. It's not about John Tortorella. What's important for the Flyers organization moving forward. That's what matters. And we'll find a way to figure out what's best for the organization.
Danny, with a couple guys like Kevin Hayes, Ivan Progrov, Kevin's got 3 years left on his deal. Ivan has 2. Obviously, they're getting a little older. Where do you see their futures as a part of this rebuild?
Well, they're first of all, they're 2 great players, guys that have played well, have had great careers up to this point. We'll see what happens. I think it's a little too early to jump to conclusions. In Kevin's case, I know I saw the report that he doesn't know where he stands. We can't forget that Kevin is a 6'5", centerman that can put up a lot of points. They're not easy to find. There's lots of teams that would love to have players like him. So he's got a lot of value. I know at times it might have not been the way he wanted the season to go, but we can't forget that he's still a really good player. We'll figure what needs to be done with Kevin. If he's here or somewhere else, but I hope at the moment he's our property. He's part of our team, and we are assuming that he's going to be part of the team next year. We'll see as the summer develops and if there's different opportunities there.
It's interesting you mentioned Kevin. You called him a centerman. It seemed like for a lot of the season, John Tortorella didn't consider him to be a centerman. So I guess where do you stand on that in terms of his value as a player?
The beauty of it is he has the possibility to play on the wing as well. It's a big plus. But he's been a centerman pretty much his whole career. He was probably one of our most successful centermen in the face-off circle after losing, Claude and Sean, where we were dominant there. So I still view him, as a centerman, but he has the ability to play on the wing because of his size and his smart and how much he can make plays. He's an asset to our team. He's an important player, but just like any player, we'll listen to what's out there and what's available.
Danny, realistically, how many of the Phantoms, players currently on the Phantoms, do you see here next year with a good chance to be here next year?
Well, some guys left some good impressions. Denoyer and Forrester up front, especially. Lixell came up. He's been playing really well in the minors. It wasn't as successful when he was up, but he still has a chance. On defense, it was interesting. With Zamula, Adard, Yinning, and now Andre has also joined the Phantoms, and he's been playing really well. So it's exciting to see, some of the young guys. The future on defense is exciting as well. But again, it's too early to say who's going to be here. And like me, it's going to depend on camp, who performs well at camp, who looks good. And if a guy deserves to be here, we'll find a way to make room for him.
Do you like Urson too? You didn't mention Urson.
Yeah, yes. Definitely Sam Urson has earned a long look next year in camp. He's been impressive. I think his attitude was tremendous, both when he was here and when he's been with the Phantoms. So I'm excited that he's playing some really meaningful games starting tomorrow night in the playoffs. So it's going to be fun to watch him play there, see if he can kind of keep the traction that he built this year.
Danny, staying on the topic of prospects for a second, it seems like you guys are going to have Cutter Gauthier go back for the sophomore season in college. What led you to kind of want him to get more time in college? That's question one. And question two, another college guy, Jay O'Brien, a decision has to be made on whether you guys would be signing him. If you are going to be signing him, do you yet know whether the comp pick would be this year or next year in the draft?
So on Jay, now we're not sure. We're trying to figure that out. It's been months. It feels like that we've been trying to figure out exactly when the compensation. But we've told this camp that no, we weren't going to re-sign him. So the next part is just waiting to see when that pick comes. On Cutter, we told him about our vision and what we see moving forward, and he had a discussion with his advisor and family, and they decided that it was better for him to go back for another year, which I really don't have a problem with. I think it's going to give him the chance to hopefully even be more dominant than he was this year. Another year of World Juniors, I'm really excited about, and we're going to get a, bigger, better, faster, more mature Cutter Gauthier the following year. So I'm really excited about his development this year.
At the trade deadline, when Chuck traded McEwen, and Chuck was honest in saying he did it primarily to get the asset. He was, looking at Lemieux's acquisition as an audition, 20-game audition, possibly to evaluate if he might be a guy you want to bring back. What was your evaluation of how Brendan played, and what do you think?
I thought Brendan came in and was great the first 10 games, 12 games that he played, and then he had a little bit of a dip at the end of the season, like a few of our guys. So I'm not sure if it's just really him, if it's more of a team thing. We had a little slump there before the last two regular season games, but he brought us a spark, a little bit of physicality as well. So I liked what he brought, and again, we're a little thin on the left side, so he's definitely going to be part of the discussions.
Danny, just wanted to ask about Tony D'Angelo. John obviously decided to sit him for the final 5 games of the season. He's got 1 more year left on his deal. How do you see him either fitting in next year or not?
Well, I'm not going to go into what happened. I think Torts has been really clear. Some of the stuff happens in the locker room, and it stays between the players and the coaches. So, Tony had an up and down season. There's times where he was dominant, and there's times where he was struggling. So it's going to be a big summer for him. And as of right now, he's part of the team, and I plan on bringing him back. And we'll see where that goes. But it's definitely not a fun situation at the moment for him. The way things ended. That's about all I can tell you at the moment on that.
Danny, going back to a player you talked about a little bit earlier, Travis Konechny. Obviously, he had the big year, took a big step forward. You've also been open about the fact that you guys are in a rebuild. and he's a guy where he's not old certainly, but his contract is up in a couple of years, and he'll probably be in line for a big raise if he continues to play like this. I guess, do you look at that and say, as hard as it would be to maybe explore moving someone like him, and not just him, but players like him, but he might not fit our timeline based on the fact that his next contract might last into his mid-30s and might not fit with kind of what you guys are trying to do?
It's definitely going to be, things we evaluate. But he's still young enough that he can be part of the rebuild. And we don't know. We haven't had any talks with his agent or anything like that, so it's way too early to kind of dive into that and say no, he can't be part of it, or yes, he can. Those are all things we're going to evaluate, just like every other player on this roster.
Danny, when you see the Devils, what they did, they were 2 points ahead of you last year. I think they had 63 points,
Mm-hmm.
and now did a complete turnaround.
Yep.
Do you look at that and say, if we get the right draft picks, that we can do that one day? Not that it's going to be 1 year, but.
Correct, and I want to make sure that's clear that it's, I don't expect that to happen next year, but one day we certainly hope, to have, to be one of the teams that jumps into, the contending teams, in the league. I think there's a few teams that are right on the cusp as well, and we saw this year New Jersey jump into that. I hope we're there. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. Like I said earlier, the players are going to decide that when they're ready to take that next step.
Is drafting the right way, is that the key to making that happen? Or is
to start, and then eventually when we feel we're there and it's time, then we're going to look to see if we can acquire either by trades or free agency or whatever, but at the moment I still feel that we need to figure out what we have. We need to figure out which players will be part of the future, and you don't want to block them by bringing outside players at the moment. That's kind of the vision. So yeah, drafting is for me a very important part to start this process.
That said, Danny, can you give the fans a minimum timeline? I mean, we've been through rebuilds with other teams in this town, and it just seems fair that.
I don't have a number. Yeah, I don't have a number. I really don't know. Again, like we got excited at the end of the season because we're playing better, we're winning games, our young guys are playing better and better. But what happens next year if we come back and there's a regression there, and we've seen it many times over. So I want to be careful. I don't know exactly where we're at in the process, so that's why I can't. I wish I could give you a timeline, but I'd be lying to you. I don't know. If it's 2 years or 5 years or 8 years, I really don't know at this point.
How would you assess towards this season? I mean, and especially now that you have greater influence in decision making, how do you feel?
I've been really happy with him. Honestly, I think the job he's done was very impressive. To be able to, he used the word accountability, I think, earlier. He used the word culture, standard. When I look at our team this year compared to last year, the way we played, the way we competed, it was night and day. And I saw a team that, it had ups and downs throughout the year. The consistency was definitely an issue, which, you expect with a young team. That was definitely the case, but it was a team that competed a lot harder than it did the previous year, and that's where I'm proud of how our guys competed almost every night. There was a couple games here and there where it got really bad, but overall, night after night, it felt it was a team that the fans could come to the rink and be excited and be a fan of, because you knew that they were leaving it on the ice and they were competing hard. So that's where I was proud of the players. I was really happy with Torts and his coaching staff and how they were able to bring that mentality into the dressing room, much more than we've had the last few years. So.
How much do you think Scott Lawton's consistency contributed to that sort of professionalism?
Yeah, well, Scott, it was tough for Scott because we've removed a lot of veterans around him the last couple of years, and then he also, because of injuries, lost Ellis, Couturier, and Atkinson that were all big part of what was supposed to be our leadership group. So it wasn't an easy task for him with all the young guys around, but he had a great season. I was really happy with how Scott played and how he acted and tried to lead the way, being surrounded by mostly a younger group of guys.